On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, hey CJ, where you at? What are you doing? We all want to know, are you progressing? New offensive coordinator, and where is the Houston Texans' focus now that week 2 of free agency has kicked off?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, welcome back for another episode of the Locked On Texan podcast with John Hickman, Brian Big Sarge Barfield, your credential media members and insiders. We're extremely happy to be back with you guys to talk Texans with you. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we'll be talking about don't be so quick to quit them. We see a lot of the comments, move on from this guy, move on from that player. Hold on now. They can't address all their needs in the draft, and they will need bodies back. So don't be so quick to quit them. Who we say may surprise you. Where is the Texans' focus? We'll look at the Houston Texans moving forward in week 2 on all the way up into the draft. They still need a receiver, Sarge. That room ain't moving nobody. It ain't damn sure ain't moving the goalposts. So we'll talk about that. We kick off today's show looking at the progression of CJ Stroud. Before we start the conversation, I want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Hey, y'all better go to Gametime right now. Get you some Rockets home game tickets. They ain't got a lot left. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Also, check out Locked On Rockets. Big Sarge.
John Hickman, greetings and salutations.
It's Wednesday. It's time to get it cracking. And the talk of the entire offseason has been, oh, wow, Derek Stingley got it back. Oh, wow, Nick Caley's here in Houston. Oh, wow, Chris Stroud is out. Cole Popovich is in. No more Laramie Tunsil. Throughout everything, it doesn't seem like we've talked about the guy that this move, a lot of these moves, will benefit the most, and that's CJ Stroud. Last year, we talked about him a lot. Rookie of the year. Also, around this time last year, he was on a world tour, the best of both worlds, right? With him and Michael Parsons doing their best, Jay-Z and the other guy impression. But, right now, the conversations that we've had hasn't really surrounded CJ Stroud. So, you hit me and said, hey, listen, let's talk about what CJ Stroud needs to do. Let's talk about what he needs to take on his plate. So I want to go ahead and defer to you. Year 3 for CJ Stroud looks like what?
Year 3 is CJ Stroud having a bounce back year. Even though he didn't have too bad of a year, he had what most would consider a bad year based off of what he did his rookie season. So year 3, I think that he's going to take that next step up, that next progression. And I do believe that with this new offensive system that he's admired from afar because it's, that Sean McVay tree. And when the Los Angeles Rams came to have that joint practice and do that preseason game against the Houston Texans, he got a chance to speak with Matt Stafford. He got a chance to talk to Sean McVay. He got a chance to see some, the way that they carry themselves, but also, going back, looking at film, watching some of the things that they've done. And so year 3 of CJ Stroud, the progression is going to be, I think they're going to put more trust in CJ. And by putting more trust in CJ, you're not going to have the restraints that you had on him last season. We know who he can be. We know what he can be. And I think that if you give him the freedom to be what he wants to be, what he can be, then you'll see a different CJ Stroud. You'll see year 1 CJ Stroud, because you and I have talked about this before, John. The one thing that CJ did not have in year 2 is fun. And although they get paid, handsomely to play this game, they'll tell you at the end of the day, it's a kid's game. I just want to go out there, have fun, and play football. And it was just so many stresses, and it was just so much put on CJ. And I think that now, going into year 3, I think that they know what they have in CJ Stroud. So he will be able to, audible at the line. He will be able to change the protection. He will get out of the huddle sooner. There won't be all these long play calls in there. And another thing that I like, John, that you mentioned, CJ off the field this year is a testament to what he was becoming towards the middle and the end of the season, because a lot of people don't realize is that CJ rededicated his life to Christ, and when he rededicated his life to Christ, he made a vow that he was going to focus more. He was going to focus and hone in more on not only his faith, but more of football. And he told us, heading into the offseason, he said, "Hey, look, I got some things that I need to do to get myself back together, because this team won't go anywhere without me." And I think that, John, I don't know if we still have that clip or not, but I asked CJ about the weight of being franchise quarterback, and he said, "Man, Sarge, it hits you pretty hard, and it's a lot. I didn't realize how much it was until year 2." And so I'm just ready to see him get back to having fun. I'm ready to see him, play the type of football that he needs. Also, CJ had, sustained some injuries that he played throughout the season. And, he took this time to heal. So I like the fact that CJ's off the grid. I think that when he came to Houston to play in the Travis Scott celebrity game, he said that, "Hey, I'll do interviews, but I'm not taking any football questions." And that's huge, and that's big, because he only wants to focus on, what he's focusing on. And so I like what CJ Stroud, where his mind is right now. And I think they're heading into OTAs, after the draft and all that, heading into OTAs, I think you'll see a different CJ Stroud.
Man, whatever happened on them world tours with him and Michael Parsons, that Dallas Cowboy funk must have rubbed off on him so bad. He had to say, "You know what, God, I'm sorry. You saved me, gave me a second chance."
Whoa.
But the second chance we'll be looking at, for us, we'll be looking at, going into year 3. And I think you hit the nail on the coffin. For number one, for CJ, it was absolutely important for him to just kind of take a step back.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
A lot of things going on behind the scenes. And we've talked about it, hinted at it on this show. Hey, that shoulder wasn't all the way right. The health of CJ Stroud wasn't all the way right. For year 3, for me, let's put some more on his plate. Let's give him more command of an offense. I really think year 3 is going to kind of mirror how Nick Caley feels about himself as an offensive coordinator for the first time, right? I mean, for Bobby, for 2 years, the question marks for Bobby was, very like, okay, where's his confidence level? And the famous clip that we've shown on this show time and time again, "If I'm wrong, can he make me right?"
Yeah.
That never set well with me. Never. Like, I don't want to hear my offensive coordinator say, "Hey, man, I could be wrong right here. Please come save me," right?
Yeah.
Give me a second chance. That never set right with me.
Yeah.
And so when Nick Caley, he came in that press conference, and I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the things that he said was very like prototype. I mean, stereotypical. What you want to hear, what offensive coordinators in new positions typically say. But it did come with some energy.
Yeah.
And it came with a different swag. Yep. And he's also coming from Sean McVay Sean McVay is very swaggy in the way he handles himself in terms of confidence. And so I think all of last year, when we talk about how bad Bobby Sloak was, I mean, I don't want to necessarily get back into it because we know that he's been bad. But the play calling wasn't the only thing he was bad at. It was the confidence or lack thereof that the offense had instilled in them from day one of training camp last year.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see moving forward, hopefully, with Nick Caley, and also with I think the pressure DeMeco Ryans and Nick Caserio is going to put on everybody to be better at their job.
Yep.
Don't be scared to go out there and just play the game that you love from a coaching standpoint and a quarterback standpoint. So for CJ, I absolutely want him to get back to a space where he's having fun. I mean, the few times that I can remember, the Nico Collins bomb right before he goes out against the Buffalo Bills, the playoff run against the Chargers where he picked up the first down and more using his legs. Like, we didn't see that version of CJ Stroud a lot last year. And so, yes, with taking on more of a command on the offense, being able to control audibles by reading the defense and make sure your offensive line knows what they're doing, of course, that's confidence right there. Yes, all of those things are important. But the progression of CJ Stroud, I think, really has to do with the eagerness, the swag, and the confidence that Nick Caley is going to build into him starting off a month ago. Like,
Yeah.
hey, guy, you're the guy,
Yep.
and I need you.
And John, I'm going to say this real quickly too, because I don't want anybody to think that we're just here to, hold CJ Stroud's pom poms. Like we're gonna, not hold his pom poms, but have pom poms and cheerlead for him.
Because they heard me
Because,
be critical of him, and
yeah,
I love CJ as a quarterback.
there was some things that CJ did last year that was on CJ. There was some times in those in the games that was on CJ, and it's crazy, John, because the other night, the NFL Network replayed the Detroit Lions versus the Houston Texans game. And in that second half, I'm just saying, what happened? What happened? Like just what happened? And I'm saying, and I'm not talking about what happened as far as the offensive standpoint. I'm not talking about the play call, this, that, and other. I want to know, hey, what happened, CJ? Because CJ made some bad throws. And like I said, CJ knows, and it's one of the things that he respects, from people who can be honest, and honest about the game. And he knows he messes up. He knows that he isn't the he doesn't make mistakes. He makes mistakes. He knows that. And and John, I was critical of him, and then his mom made sure she let me know that's still my son. But when I talked to CJ was like, "No, you just doing your job." And he said everything you said was right. I was having a bad game. That was on me. And so, I want him to be able to correct the things that he messed up on himself and then get himself back together. Because John, if he's focused, then the rest of the offense is focused.
Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd from a 25-point deficit. How would you feel about witnessing an unforgettable moment like that from your Houston Rockets or your favorite college team, U of H? Go Cougs. There's nothing like experiencing a big game live in person. Getting tickets should not be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier to get in on last-minute tickets at unbeatable prices. Kind of like the Houston Rockets on their last several games. Unbeatable.
7 games winning streak.
7-game winning streak. And you can make sure that you are live in the Toyota Center to root them on heading into the playoffs with Gametime. Listen, this is how Gametime works. And they got the Gametime picks that curates better value for tickets to sports, concert, comedy, and theater events near you. They make it easy to find better value. Check out Gametime today. They are super amazing with a lot of great deals, and they have some huge matchups coming up. The lowest price guarantee or your ticket will be refunded back to you 110% of the difference. Also, peace of mind. You want to know where you're sitting at? With views from your seat option on Gametimes before you buy, no surprises. You know exactly where you're sitting. You can do all of this with total confidence in yourself. So, when I say confidence, not the Bobby Slower confidence, Sean McVay, the D'Amico Ryans confidence. Download Gametime app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That is LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Welcome back to the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. John, before we went to the break, we were talking about being focused. We talk about CJ Stroud coming into year 3 being focused. And I put it like this. If CJ knows like I know, if he looks down that locker room and he see a guy who was focused, who just got 89 out of $90 million guaranteed, that's going to keep him focused. He's going to be very focused coming into this season. But there was a report that went out, right? An article by a friend of the show, Jonathan Alexander, who said that the Houston Texans are not probably won't be looking for another starter. And now they're looking to build the rest of the team throughout the draft. John, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably, for me, in my opinion, I think that's probably the best. I don't see any guy on the wide receiver market right now that could come in and be a starter for this team, aside from Stephon Diggs. We talked about him on Monday's show. Because and also for Houston, I don't want them to get into a 1-year deal with any of these receivers. So I would say who's the multiple year guy? And Stephon Diggs and maybe Keenan Allen are the only two guys out there that I think that would make sense for Houston. I was big on the receiver from Cleveland, Elijah Moore, but Houston signed Christian Kirk, so I think that those kind of contradict themselves. The rest of the talent for the receiver room, I think you're going to find better value in the draft. And when I say better value, a younger player at a cheaper cost rate and a guy that you can expect to be here and build with CJ Stroud, Nick Caley in this offense moving forward. And so, like, who else is out there in terms of starting offensive linemen? Does it make more sense to just say, hey, listen, we're on the back end of the draft, so we can go in and go get an offensive lineman that makes sense for what we want to do? Seen a lot of mock drafts that got Kelvin Banks, and I was just scratching my head at that. When did he become available at 25? But Booker is a name. Simmons is a name. There's options out there. So ultimately, when I look around for the Houston Texans, what are they looking for? Is it still depth pieces so they won't fall victim to the same issues that they did last year? Depth failed Houston a lot of times, especially offensively last year. Or are they looking for some home run guys? And I don't see a lot of home run players out there aside from Stephon Diggs. And I understand the pushback when people say, well, is Stephon Diggs still a home run player now in his career? So I would go all draft.
Yeah. Well, John, I'm gonna put it like this, and and I love Jonathan Alexander, and he's a brilliant beat writer for the Houston Chronicle. But I was told something differently, and I was told that they have not closed the door on looking for an offensive starter as far as the wide receiver 2 position is concerned. So maybe Jonathan and I are talking to two totally different people. I'm pretty sure we are. Jonathan has those high level sources. I just got the ones, I got sources, but I don't know. Sometimes my sources don't run as high as Jonathan's. But they haven't closed the door on a number 2 start, a number 2 wide receiver, John. They haven't closed the door on bringing in somebody else to play on the opposite side of Nico Collins. And John, yes, there's no more. The only big free agent name out there left is Stephon Diggs, right? And you don't want to get into Keenan Allen, who's an older wide receiver. How much does Amari Cooper have left in the tank? Tyler Lockett, how much does he still have in the tank? And so if they're going out and they're looking at the free agent wide receiver market, they're still just like, no. But John, let me ask you this, right? Real quickly, just let me ask you this. What if the number 2 starter for the Houston Texans is on somebody else's team right now? And I'm going to say, and before you answer that, all I'm going to say is this, is that, CJ Gardner-Johnson, amazing, right? That's a great pickup. Christian Kirk, that's a great pickup. The Houston Texans still has not made that trade or that free agent signing like they did last year when they brought in Mixon, when they brought in Aziz, when they brought in Danielle Hunter. Like, they haven't made those type of when they brought in Stephon Diggs. And so, John, I feel like this, and it's crazy because we always talk about the Texans were trying to emulate the Patriots. They want to be the Patriots South, the Patriots South. Well, John, I'm gonna put it like this. Hey, why not? Hell, just emulate, be the Rams South. And what I mean by that, the Rams said, hey, man, F them picks. F them picks.
They went
Get
all
the
in.
picks away. We don't care. And they went and they did exactly what they needed to do. God, they're like, hey, man, look, hey, them picks, whatever. We maybe be able to recoup on down the line. But if it's going to take this to get me this player from this team, hey, what y'all want for him again? Okay, let me hear. All right. Hey, man, forget them picks, because that's exactly what the Rams did, and they won a Super Bowl. So, John, what if
I'm not mad at that.
2 wide receivers on another team?
I'm not mad at that. I'm trying to think of the landscape of the NFL in terms of the wide receivers out there that are already signed. Chris Godwin just re-signed back. I don't see Houston trading for Mike Evans.
Because he's a free agent next year.
The one guy that I would really like for Houston to look into, and I do think with the potential that he has, he could be a wide receiver 1A. I hate New Orleans.
Chris Olave.
Chris Olave. You look at a guy that with instant connection with CJ Stroud. You look at a guy that can play some good football, right? You look at a guy that can do a multitude of things. And you also look at a guy that he's still seeking a contract extension, and I don't think he's going to come like expensive. I think he'd be, Houston was able to get another mid round back this year. Does a third year cut it? Does a third round pick, cut it for him? But he's a guy that I think would immediately raise your floor at wide receiver. Like that'd be great. Him, Nico, Kirk. And then you will still be able to address that need later in the draft for a guy that you can kind of just coach up. So I do like that idea of maybe trading for a Chris Olave or another team's receiver.
John, let me tell you this. And before I say this, hey, look, the thoughts, views, and opinions of Big Sarge is of Big Sarge or Big Sarge is alone. All right? Because, John, I don't want you to catch none of this smoke or the name I'm about to say. I don't want you to catch none of this backlash for the name that I'm about to say. Hey, man, if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm calling up Pittsburgh and seeing what they want for George Pickens. He ain't happy. And he's a very good wide receiver, John. He just hasn't played in the right system. He hasn't played with the right quarterback. He hasn't been in a locker room that is conducive to him and his talent and being able to control him. There's too many, John, listen, there's too many outside attitudes. Outside and different attitudes in that Pittsburgh Steelers locker room. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that Mike Tomlin lost that locker room a long time ago. But if you say, okay, let me ask you, who's the quarterback for Pittsburgh right now? See what I'm saying? You couldn't even answer that right off the rip, right? Do you think that if they bring Aaron Rodgers in and George Pickens like I just played with a black with a black version of an old Aaron Rodgers in Russell Wilson. Justin Fields didn't want to be here anymore. Who y'all brought back? Kenny Pickett, and what's that dude that Myles Garrett hit in the face with the helmet? Mason Rudolph. Look at the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. George Pickens ain't happy, and you just brought in DK Metcalf and gave him $30 million a year. So George Pickens can't be happy. They already gonna fight over the number. So if I'm Nick, I'm just doing my hey John, look, like me and you know this, but to the listeners and the viewers, this is what you call a callback. If I'm Nick, I'm doing my due diligence to see if George Pickens may be available, because if he comes here, John, he's in a whole different situation. And guess what?
Think about Deontay Johnson.
No, but wait, hold on. George Pickens is way more talented than Deontay Johnson. They was struggling. Like Deontay Johnson was a struggle meal. He was ramen. You know what I mean? You're hungry, but you very hungry, and all you got to eat is ramen. So they went out and they got Deontay Johnson. All I'm saying is this real quickly, John, is that George Pickens has never been in a situation like the Houston Texans. And you come in here with an opportunity to win. There is no opportunity to win in Pittsburgh. They are one of the worst franchises right now in the AFC. That's all I'm saying, John.
Yeah, I don't agree with the George Pickens. I'm not too much really that big of a fan of George Pickens too. I kind of feel about
you saying not talented.
No, he's in the NFL. He has talent.
Very good talent.
I do. I don't know. No, I'm not George Pickens. I would say maybe look at Green Bay and see if one of those receivers.
They can't stay healthy.
If they
wide receivers cannot stay healthy, John.
Oh,
so no, we already got unhealthy wide receivers right now.
Yeah. But I think we all can agree on the Texans are not done addressing that unit. And I don't think that they're not only done addressing that unit, but again, their focus isn't just wide receiver, even though we know that's a high regard right now, but also how are they going to finish out that offensive line, right? They brought in Tomlinson, they moved on from Larry Tunsil. Titus Howard, is going to be inside, outside? It's been confirmed he'll be playing tackle. That is still a position of need, and you can kind of look at the Houston Texans and say, do you guys want to risk maybe trading those earlier picks when you can use those premium picks for players that makes sense, or is there a guy out there that you think can immediately come in and upgrade? But overall, I think a conversation that needs to be had is some of y'all need to not be so quick to quit some of these players that are on the roster. So we'll dive into that to close out today's show.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, so here's a conversation that I think we need to be had. Here's a conversation that I think needs to be had. Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think everybody was shocked, whether you were happy shocked or sad shocked, Sarge, with the move of Larry Tunsil. Yeah. For a lot of people, myself included, that was the move that needed to be made. Attitude change and the whole nine. Does Dalton Schultz fall into that, right? That's a player that I want to ask you about. And also, don't be so quick to move on from Juice and Jarrett, the two offensive linemen that I think we give a lot of sympathy to Titus Howard because of how much he's been moved around in his career and just a lot of injustices in a lot of ways. But he got paid, so shout out to Howard. But we got to use that same thought process when it comes to those two young men who were clearly a victim of bad coaching last year. And I'm seeing mock drafts where they're drafting guys like Jarrett Wilson to be the next center. I'm telling y'all here right now, I don't think Jarrett Wilson is a better center than Juice Scruggs.
Jared Patterson?
Or Jared Patterson. I know Jarrett Wilson, the center from Georgia.
Oh, my bad.
So yeah, I don't want Texas fans or us in the media to get so caught up in being quick and eager to move on from some of these players when we are screaming coaching matters. Give some of these guys a shot to get coached up and improve on their game. Dalton Schultz is also a player. You tell me how you feel. Should the Houston Texans be so eager to move on from him?
John, okay. How can I put this? I don't think that they should be eager to move on from him, but I also don't think that they should be steadfast to stick with him long term if he's not being effective. And I know that sometimes you want to stick with a player to justify the money, and I get that part. But with the way that Dalton Schultz played last year, with the way that it seems like at times he was lackadaisical. It looked like a lot of times last year he lacked focus. And if you're not going to block, if you're not willing to block, then I can't have you on the field if I'm Nick Caley. If I'm Nick Caley, if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I can't have you on the field because, playing the tight end position, playing the wide receiver position, playing any position on the offensive side of the ball outside of quarterback requires you to block in some form or fashion. And if you're not going to do that, then I can't have you on the field. John, the last time we seen Dalton Schultz play, he whiffed on 3 sacks. 3. He gave up. And those 3 sacks came at a critical point in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. That was Dalton Schultz. And so I can't have you whiffing on blocks. I can't have you missing blocks. If I put you in motion and you're supposed to block, then block. Because it isn't always about catching passes. It isn't always about going in route. And sometimes even, it just looked like he didn't have the focus. So I don't know, John. I know what Dalton Schultz could be. I know I've seen Dalton Schultz at as high as I've seen him as potential when he played for the Dallas Cowboys. I know that Dalton Schultz is a very good tight end. And like we've said before on this show, having Nick Caley, who's a former tight ends coach, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs somebody to, be that extra coach for him to help him out. But John, listen, let me tell you who I don't want to be so quick to quit on. And wait, before, did you have more that you want to say about
No, I
Dalton
just want to
Schultz?
say, what if Caley feels like he can fix it? What if
Hey,
Caley feels like, hey, you know what? We gotta really put our resources in other areas. We got 3 guys that are very capable, and I'm a coach of this unit before. Me and Jerry are here now to kind of fix these things. Let us coach and fix it.
so then if you do fix it with Dalton Schultz, then what happens to the growth of Cade Stover? And what do you do with Brevin
And
Jordan?
that's where I think that's where the football aspect comes in, because I can sit here and say, Dalton Schultz was lazy and he didn't, give 100% effort. But at the same time, I don't think Dalton Schultz was asked to do the things that he was really good at consistently. And one of those things that he's not good at is blocking premier DNs. Like, I think that was a dumb decision altogether. So I think I look at overall, and I'm just trying to make sense of it. Can he fix not only Dalton Schultz, but get the most out of the tight end unit and room to where the liabilities aren't necessarily exposed as much, because you got different guys that can do different things on that football field.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, John. When I look at it, I'm just saying I don't know, because I want to see what Cade Stover can do.
I do
I
too.
watched
And I
him,
think he is a
you know,
Texas future tight end, by
right.
the way.
And we know that Brevin Jordan is coming back from this injury, but we do know, given the opportunity and the chance with with reps, we know what he can do as well. But John, I'm going to tell you who I'm not so quick to quit on: Dameon Pierce. I believe that if the Houston Texans do not go out and get a backup running back, I think that it's finally going to kick into Dameon Pierce. On last year, you can see that he became more focused. I think that when he first got his starting position taken away from him, when Devin Singletary was here, when Motor was here,
Yeah.
I don't think it really kicked in to him just yet. It was just more of a pride thing that I've got my position taken. And then last year, I think, and playing with the running back like Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon teaching him how. There's never been a running back that's been here that's taught him how to play running back. Danny Barrett is an amazing running backs coach, but sometimes it takes another player to teach a player. And he emulated a lot of the things that Joe Mixon did. So I'm not quick to give up on Dameon Pierce yet. And I think that, he's great on special teams. We see what he can do, but I mean, John, even though it was against the Tennessee Titans, we did see what he can do. Given if he had 100 and something yards in that 100 and
He
what,
almost cracked 200.
right? And
I'm
they had
sorry.
that
He almost put up 200.
yeah, he had that 97-yard run. But and real quickly, John, if you can get 65, 70 yards out of him as a backup and maybe one touchdown, I think you got something.
Yeah. I will say this, and we'll talk about this more on tomorrow's show. A player that I am extremely skeptical about moving forward is Christian Harris. I think he's on out right now. I think Henry T, your boy, has progressed in 2 years extremely well, and he came up big for Houston a lot last year.
How come they can't
Christian
all
Harris
just
was
get
on.
along, John? How come you can't put all 3 of them on the field? But that's something that we'll talk about.
We'll talk about that tomorrow. Thank y'all for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast. Please be sure to do 3 things, Sarge. You know what it is. Subscribe, like and comment to the YouTube page, and follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with a Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.